very exciting day. Let me first of all introduce myself. For those that do not know me, I am Cristina Russo. I am Director for the Prosperity Directorate in DG Research and Innovation, and I'm very, very happy to welcome you here this morning in this important Industry 5.0 Community of Practice plenary session. I am pleased to welcome you with all my colleagues whom have been working very hard to make it happen, and I thank them in advance. I think that there is no better moment than now when we are changing to moving forward to a new commission to take stock of the very good work which has been done with the Industry 5.0 Community of Practice. And it's really important now to take stock of these 10 months in which you've been very, very actively. The meeting that we will have today will give us the opportunity to discuss how Industry 5.0 can contribute to address the challenges of transforming the EU industries towards sustainable competitiveness. And this is a very, very important subject that is at the heart of the priorities that President van der Leyen has set for the new Commission. And I'm sure that the work that we have done and will be doing will contribute to make Europe a more prosperous continent. But without further ado, I would like to welcome to this conference Mr. Marc Lemaître, Director General for DG Research and Innovation. Marc, we know that you are very busy in these very exciting days for the Commission, so we're very happy that you made your time to be here with us, and I pass you the floor for some introductory words. Thank you very much, Marc.
Thank you very much, Cristina. I don't know if I'm busy, but I like to keep myself busy with important topics, and I think this is one of them. Let me first make some order in my relatively wild notes. So a very good morning to everyone. I shouldn't just say ladies and gentlemen. I think I really should emphasize that most of you present here are, in fact, members of a community of practice by now around Industry 5.0. And it is a great pleasure for me to be here today at what is a first in-person plenary session of your community. And it's not only a great pleasure, as Cristina said, it's also a great moment to meet. Indeed, it gives us today the opportunity to assess what has been achieved over the last months, but also to confront our work with Europe's evolving priorities. So, first, let's take a look at the achievements. Today, we mark the conclusion of the Community of Practice pilot phase. Over the last 10 months, this community has worked hard to produce its first set of deliverables, now included in the adopted final report. These deliverables are concrete examples of innovative Industry 5.0 driven solutions at both the ecosystem and the company level, showing how industries can adapt to the ongoing transformational processes. First, you have emphasized the crucial role of Industry 5.0 as a transformative agenda for industrial research and innovation. You also co-created the prototype Industry 5.0 learning and assessment tool. Once fully developed, this tool could help companies design impact-driven, organization-based learning models. I dare say that practical, innovative solutions, like those mentioned in the Community of Practice final report, are essential elements of the toolbox industries and SMEs need to navigate the transformational processes ahead. Next to these deliverables, in just 4 years, Industry 5.0 has earned a strong reputation and is becoming increasingly reflected in new initiatives at all levels, European, national, regional, and local. As a recent example, just a few weeks ago, the Consultative Commission for Industrial Change of the European Economic and Social Committee adopted an own initiative opinion on Industry 5.0. This opinion affirms the need to ground the Industry 5.0 vision in European policies and to integrate its principles into the design of industrial transition pathways. Another example is Industry All, a major European trade union which published its position paper on Industry 5.0 earlier this year. In May, in fact. In this paper, Industry All emphasized that Industry 5.0 is not just about technological advancements. It's about ensuring that workers are at the center of the twin transitions, recognizing that the human element is crucial to addressing the challenges these transitions bring. And what now of Europe's emerging political priorities? A must-read, I would suggest, is the report recently put forward by Professor Draghi. I say must-read because it is extremely rich and thought-provoking in the analytical base, but of course also because it provides some very inspiring recommendation. The report highlights 3 areas for action to boost Europe's growth and Europe's especially productivity trends. First, closing the innovation gap, especially with the US and China, with a focus on the skills agenda. Second, creating a joint plan for decarbonization and competitiveness. And third, enhancing security while reducing dependencies. Does this sound familiar? Well, strikingly, these priorities show great resemblance with the principles of Industry 5.0, human centricity, sustainability, and resilience. Allow me just to zoom in on the innovation gap part. You will not be surprised. This can be measured in very simple terms, our research and innovation effort as compared to that in the US or even in China by now. We are still, I would say, at a meager 2.2% of GDP of annual public and private investments in research and innovation, while the US is at 3.5%, and China has surpassed us by now at 2.4% on a strongly rising trend. But there is another analytical element in the Draghi report that I do want to zoom in on, and it is that most of the productivity differential between the US and Europe over the past 20 years, so the different productivity trends, is explainable by Europe not having been as quick in adopting and disseminating throughout the economy digital solutions, digital tools. And this is where Professor Draghi tells us we need to do much better and fast. And we need to do much better looking at the new digital tools that are emerging today. Of course, there is artificial intelligence, which is very much on everyone's minds by now, but it goes much further than that. We might have not been at the forefront of, for instance, data centers and software developments and so on and so forth. But Europe today is not badly placed at all to really be in a leadership position on quantum technologies, for instance. But the underlying point, to me, of this focus on digital opportunities is that we will be facing accelerating technological change, and this throughout our economies. And we must see this accelerating technological change. And the consequence of that, or an implication of that, is that we really need indeed to think in a human-centric way, think of what AI will be doing to our working environments, especially, I believe, in industry, and we need to think about the necessary fast evolution of skills. So today, European industries and SMEs, the backbone of our economy, are facing a multitude of challenges. These include this rapid technological change that I referred to, both digital, but also linked to the green transition, sectorial transitions, a shrinking working age population in Europe, and the need to attract and retain top talent. To overcome these challenges, we need new approaches that make, in particular, the most of available skills. And these approaches must be rooted in human centricity, one of the core principles of Industry 5.0, as highlighted in the Community of Practice's final report. One key Industry 5.0 enabler identified by the Community of Practice is accelerating learning and adaptability at both the organizational and ecosystem levels. This shift that is needed in traditional models for learning, development, and upskilling is huge and vital for us. Companies must create many more opportunities for their workforce to upgrade skills at a faster pace and meet the new demands of a competitive industry. As the Draghi report pointed out, around 1/4 of European companies face difficulties in finding employees with the right skills, and more than 3/4 report that even newly recruited employees do not have the required skills. In fact, while skills shortages are an issue across all advanced economies, they are particularly acute in the EU. And this is one area where Industry 5.0, via its human-centric pillar and focus on learning and adaptability at company and ecosystem level, can be a catalyst to close Europe's skills gap. So my conclusion is that Industry 5.0 has very strong cards to contribute visibly to Europe's new political priorities. And I count on this young and fresh Community of Practice to make it happen. Now, I think I spoke more than enough, and it is high time for me to free the stage for a high-level panel discussion with distinguished guests on how Industry 5.0 can concretely contribute to enhancing the industry's long-term competitiveness. I wish you all very stimulating discussions on how to further the objectives of Industry 5.0, and through that, in fact, our European objectives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Marc, for your very inspiring words. And let's now move ahead to the panel. And I would like to invite here the 5 distinguished high-level panelists that we have invited today to discuss the role of Industry 5.0 in enhancing the long-term competitiveness of the European Union industries. Also, I would like to say that for those who wish to ask questions to any or all the panelists during the discussion, you can use the Slido link, which is displayed on the screen behind me. You can see it. And after the panel discussion, we will select the most compelling Slido questions for our panelists to address. let me now turn to our distinguished guest, and I would like to invite, first of all, Mrs. Lina Gálvez. Lina, thank you very much for being here with us. Lina, she's a member of the European Parliament. She is and already has been very active in the ITRE committee, the Committee for Industry, Research and Energy. She now is also chair of the Women's Rights and Gender Equality Committee, and we are very, very happy that you are here with us. I also would like to introduce two prominent representatives of the European industry. First of all, I would like to welcome Jean-Pascal Riss. Jean-Pascal, merci pour être ici. Jean-Pascal is Vice President for Sustainability, Industrial Relations and Strategic Partnership at Schneider Electric. Schneider Electric ranks as the 12th largest EU company by market capitalization and serves as a model for how Industry 5.0 can be successfully implemented in industrial practices. Thank you for being here. Then our second industry representative is Ms. Judith Ay. Judith, thank you for being here. Judith, she's Policy Director at the European Roundtable for Industry, a forum that brings together CEOs and chairs from a wide range of industrial and technological sectors across Europe. Then I'm very delighted to welcome Mr. Andrea Renda. Andrea is Research Director at the Center for European Policy Studies, and Andrea is one of the co-authors of the Industry 5.0 concept. Grazie, Andrea, for being here. And then last but not least, it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Guido Nelissen from the European Economic and Social Committee. And Mr. Nelissen is the co-rapporteur of the European Economic and Social Committee own initiative opinion on Industry 5.0, which has been recently adopted by the committee's Consultative Commission on Industrial Change. So, a few words on the format of today's panel. We have prepared 2 questions for each of you. We will have 2 rounds of questions, and you will each have up to 5 minutes to respond to your question. I ask you to please try to keep to the timing, because we have a very busy day. And following this structured discussion, we will address the most interesting questions submitted via Slido, as I mentioned. So ladies first, I would like to start from you, Lina. And again, thank you for being here, also in a very busy moment for the European Parliament, preparing the hearing. And I wanted to ask you, given your active role in the European Parliament Committee on Industry, Research and Energy, what role do you think that research and innovation should play in building a strong Industry 5.0 business case to support sustainable EU's competitiveness? Lina, please.
So thank you very much for having me here. It is a topic that is very close to my heart and to my work, and now it is very trendy at the European Parliament and in the European institutions. You know, how we can really boost industry and competitiveness. We all know about a Draghi report that was saying something that we probably all of us knew about it, but it was put in a very clear way, and also telling us that we really need to make in a rush in that moment. Otherwise, we will be losing our possibilities. So I think at the end, in order to be competitive, we really need to innovate, and for that, obviously, we really need to be to invest right and well on research and in-novation. Research of today is also the innovation of tomorrow. But obviously, we really need to do it in a better way in order to close this innovation gap. We are very good on research in many areas, but then when it comes to innovation, there is still a gap. We really need to fulfill for that. I mean, the collaboration, obviously, with industry, it is central. The collaboration also with research centers, with universities. So from the European Parliament, we will be fighting still for a very good budget. for research and innovation. Now probably things are a bit different than in the previous term, but the commitment at each committee and I hope of the whole Parliament on financing, it is important. And obviously we also want that this the future program, it is not divided in different places, as there are some proposals that are going on, and we will be fighting really for that. And another thing, obviously, we need more synergies. We need within the program and with other programs, also with industry, in order to create this ecosystem. And just to mention one more thing, because I know we have no more time, it was Director General Lemaître saying that industry are not finding the skills, the human capital, the people they need. And I would like to ask all of you, all of us, to make a clear, much more effort on inclusion, especially on gender equality, because we don't have still girls and women entering in those sectors in the percentage we will expect, especially because most of the university people with university degrees are women now, with best scores and everything, so still are not entering in certain sectors, in certain studies, in part because of the socialization, in part because of the conditions on those sectors, and because there are not specific policies that will have that. And as I always like to say, talent is equally spread, but opportunities are not. And since we really need that talent, and we really need that talent to innovate and to be competitive, we really need to make more efforts on making that possible. Only 1% of the money on startups is going to women. So that we cannot really afford that if we want to be competitive, having in mind there are 10 more million women in the European Union than men. And as I said before, with better education results. So in order to build up this competitiveness, in order to build up this industry 5.0, this ecosystem, industrial ecosystem, I say yes, of course, research and innovation should be at the center of our competitiveness, but also in a way that we really are able to use all the assets we can mobilize, which we are not doing at that moment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lina. We really count also on you in the European Parliament to promote the 5.0 agenda, and of course, women are an important part of that. So let me turn to Jean-Pascal Riss. Jean-Pascal, thank you for being there. As I have already mentioned, Schneider Electric is the 12th largest EU company by market capitalization, and a model example on how Industry 5.0 can and should work in practice. So given your rich experience, can you share with us your perspective of Industry 5.0 business case and its most important elements to make it work at company level? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with industries lover today. And Schneider Electric, yes, we are a large company. We operate about 200 industrial sites over the world. We are 150,000 people. 100,000 people are within our supply chain and within our factory. So we are a very large manufacturer of goods, capital goods. And so what I would like to highlight, what we have done, I would like to highlight a little bit our transformation journey. So yes, we are proud where we are. I would not say maybe we have 5.0 because it's not a status or something, but we are proud what we are doing, but we are not satisfied because actually the most important thing in all those change strategies is really to put in place a continuous improvement practice and to start this continuous improvement practice, and maybe if we look at worldwide, this is a little bit what has been lost a little bit maybe in Europe, is how to have this continuous improvement practice in place in manufacturing. So we started our transformation journey leveraging digital in 2017. So it's not that old if you think. It's just about 8 years ago where we decided from a pure strategic with really top-down, let's say, strategic goals in order to deploy basically smart factory worldwide. And we started that, really, we started with a human-centric approach with a workforce. The first thing that we did is to provide employee and workforce digital and visibility on real-time data from what they are doing. What you need to know is today less than 30%, less than 70%, or only 30% of workforce employee on the shop floor have access to data, to their data, to digital data. So we think about today, we talk a lot about artificial intelligence, but there is so much intelligence on the shop floor, just enabling, provides the real-time data set to the people that know about the machineries, that know about the processes. So much to be done. So we started by that. It's maybe very basic use case, but it has been extended across all the manufacturing and our 200 sites. It's one thing to have one site to be digital. It's another level to scale it to full and to 200 factory. It's really two different things, and we need a lot of investment, a lot of dedication to do first on one side and then to scale it to across multiple sites. So once we have this good digital base, 3 years after, we implemented more than 100 use cases, leveraging and improving productivity, 7% per year, decreasing energy usage 3% per year, and aiming it enable to have some real net zero approach and actually some fact-based number on our trajectory. Thanks to this digitization. But then from 2020, we said, okay, what can we do? Where can we push more? And we put in place what maybe seems to be at that time a 5.0 program. We put a program which called STRIVE, which meant for sustainability, resilience, velocity, and efficiency. So it's really the basis. So we are 3 years today in this program. And here what we did is we leverage all the digital tools that we set in place in order mainly to drive, I would say, quality, cost, and lead time, which are traditional manufacturing metrics. And we say, okay, to the same people, now you can change your focus and be more driven towards sustainability. And it was very easy because it was just additional, data to put in what their management practice, continuous improvement practice. So for those who are similar with manufacturing system, there is a good benchmark which was published like 30 years ago, which was the Toyota production system. But Toyota production system was really much driven on the productivity. So what we did, we adapted it to include basically sustainability practice, human-centric approach practice such as safety for sure, diversity, cybersecurity is part as well of our practice of our production system management. So this is how we enable this. But this is just a start because this is just within, I think, where we have the most job and why we are not yet satisfied is that we need to include more of our value chain player, supplier, and up to the customer into this journey. And we are starting it. This is, let's say, an initiative we started less than 2 years ago, 2022. This is really the next step. And for us, this is really where it resonates the most for us. 5.0 is not only as a large company, we need to do a good job. This is our duty. But how, as a large company, we have a duty as well to embark the ecosystem in the journey. But this is maybe a next question. Yes?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for sharing this experience, and thanks also for your passion to put Industry 5.0 into practice. That's very interesting and important. Thank you so much. Judith, we turn to you. In the European Roundtable 2024 Competitiveness and Benchmarking Report, you recommend Industry 5.0, and in particular, its human-centric pillar as one of the approaches which could solve skills and demographic challenges, also democratic, of course. Could you elaborate more on how, in your view, Industry 5.0 could close the skill gaps? And as you mentioned, which would be the main challenges that we should tackle? Also, taking into account in this respect what was mentioned in the Draghi report that Marc has also highlighted in his speech.
Sure. And first of all, thank you for having me. I'm probably going to quickly explain what ERT is. So ERT is a platform for, at the moment, 61 CEOs and chairs of leading European industrial companies. His boss is a member, so if I say something wrong, you can kick me. Oh, yeah. I wanted to take one little step back because, of course, I think the overarching concern that industry has at the moment, that the Commission's leadership has at the moment, that we've seen in the Council leadership as well, is the Europe's waning competitiveness. And that is not because we don't have the best people anymore or because we don't try, but somehow I think we have probably lost a bit the enthusiasm for technological change across the board. So there are some companies who are real leaders in technological change. One is sitting next to me. There is a keen awareness of the societal challenges, of sustainability challenges, of opportunities. But as a society or as a, as a community, we don't seem to be as keen anymore to make things better or faster or potentially cheaper, depending on which way you make it cheaper, more sustainable. So we seem to have lost a bit the hunger. And I think there is a certain insularity in Europe at the moment, and the Draghi report probably has helped to wake us out of that, that in a way we still think that we are setting the pace and we're actually not. So technological change is going to happen. Whether it's going to happen here is not clear, how it's going to happen exactly, what the values, according to which values it will happen, if any. And I think for all these reasons, Europe as such needs to become much more involved, enthusiastic again about the opportunities we have, also knowing that we don't have a huge amount of time. And to come gently back to your question, I think that each of the large companies that we're working with is spending a lot of energy, resources, money, obviously, on making sure or trying to make sure that their workforce is on board with what they do and that their workforce is able and also willing to embrace technological change. Because as you mentioned, you can put a modern machine on the shop floor. If nobody wants to use it or if people don't feel that they want to embrace how to use it, then it probably is not going to give you the results that you want and that you have to multiply. So I think there is a lot of attempts at company levels to also make the workforce realize that life can become better with Industry 4.0, for example, and that there are loads of things that can be used. And of course, that is also something where, in order to drive that change, you need to have a fairly sizable internal organization, meaning you need to have you need to have a structure that firstly sets out the workforce needs. So what are my workforce planning needs? Not every company has it because it's actually, for a smaller company, it's already difficult to justify for themselves to spend these resources on this and not just on going on about their daily business. Then you need people who are training specialists. You need technological specialists who dedicate time away from doing the business or building whatever it is that they're building to then coming up with concepts according to what that can be improved and how training can be improved. So it's actually a huge thing to lift. And larger companies are, I think, better equipped, and that's what comes also a bit to what Jean-Pascal has been saying, than smaller companies. Meaning, if you want to start using human centricity, Industry 5.0 as a trigger, I think you probably have to look a lot at enablers, because you can't regulate that issue away. There is no point in coming up with regulation that says each company has to spend so and so many hours on training per employee. I think what you need to do is create the hunger for training and the hunger for opportunities and also the financial means for opportunities. So it needs to become something where you turn it into a shared interest for everybody. And then maybe very quickly, because the word innovation came up all the time, last year, we did a study or collection of innovation stories where large companies have been giving examples for ways in which they have been tackling sustainability challenges, efficiency challenges, embracing new technologies. And what you can see from that is that each of those stories was started with someone in the company had an idea. Now, for people to have an idea in a company, you need to have the psychological safety to have that idea. You need to have the ability to execute it. So someone has to tell you, okay, now take the time and here are the means to do this. You need to see the opportunities to make something out of the idea. And for that, you can only do that in a competitive environment, because otherwise everybody will say, we have no time, we have no money. And that closes the circle. And then, good, on time.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Judith. I think that the European Roundtable can do really a lot, as it is already doing, in creating these enabling conditions for Industry 5.0 and the human-centric industry approach. So let me now turn to Andrea. Andrea, thanks for being here. As one of the co-authors of the Industry 5.0 concept and an active supporter, I wanted to ask you, where do you see the real added value of the Industry 5.0 framework in the context of the challenges that the European Union is facing in the process of ongoing green and digital transition, also in light of the Draghi report, but also and especially in light of the priorities set by the President for the new Commission?
Thank you very much, Maria Cristina, and thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to address the community of practice on Industry 5.0. Yeah, co-author of the concept. I would say I actually was at the right place, in the right place at the right time, because it was actually DG Research and Innovation that was developing the concept. And I see Kirsten also here in the first row. We members of this expert group called ESIR, Economic and Social and Societal Impacts of Research, that advise DG Research and Innovation, where there to help shape a little bit and translate this concept into concrete policy recommendations. It has been difficult for us and for DG Research and Innovation over the past mandate, and this is what I want to start with, because if we want to know where we are headed, I think it's good to know where we have been. We have been in 5 years where whatever we were discussing on Industry 5.0 we had to shave off 20%, so make it 4.0 whenever we were going to DG Grow, right? So the term has been not universally accepted. It's been actually subject to resistance. I had 1 year, which I think it was 2023, where I was at once fellow in DG Grow and a member of the ESIR group. I've done almost 10 years now as a member of the ESIR group, and I was a little bit schizophrenic, right? I knew I had to somehow change language wherever I went, and I was sort of like perceived as part of a satanic circle or sect whenever I mentioned the infamous 5 number. So it is important that we recognize that moving from 4.0 to 5.0 doesn't mean changing again the paradigm, the technological paradigm. It means making industry from a bystander to a protagonist of the industrial transformation that is functional to what Maria Cristina certainly agrees with me, because she's Director for Prosperity. I mean, what is the ultimate goal of policymakers in the EU? Knowing that competitiveness is a functional intermediate goal to this, which is the long-term prosperity of our people and our planet. Okay, so if we think that industry should be a driving force, and how can it be otherwise, right? If you take out industry, you cannot get there, right? You have to ensure that we have a model of competitiveness which I would say is different from the one that we see in the Draghi report. It is much more comprehensive and including several dimensions of resilience and sustainability over time. My impression from the Draghi report is that we have gone back a little bit to a notion of competitiveness which is fairly dry. It's almost Washington consensus, if you wish. It's a little bit of a gringo report or an IMF report in that respect. There are elements of decarbonization. There are very few elements in terms of social cohesion. There are 0 elements in terms of territorial dimensions, which are super important in the context in which the so-called geography of discontent is emerging very vibrantly, and we see Europe split with lots of people that start having anti-European sentiments because they don't see the benefits of what industry, but also the economy generally is producing for them. So in a situation like this, I think Industry 5.0 offers a different set of dimensions which are important for the longer-term competitiveness. And we have already, and this I don't know, Kirsten, I don't know if she'll agree with me or not, or if you all will agree with me, we've already discovered, even with the Green Deal, how difficult it is to conceive of a rather monodimensional set of objectives without including the societal and the territorial dimensions over time. If we do this with industry, we're not going to go anywhere. And that is why I would advocate for this first answer that I'm giving you, that we try to promote. We could call it 5.0. We could even change name if you want. But the human-centric resilience and sustainable paradigm for not the industrial transition, but transformation over the coming years, and that we convince DG GROW that that's the way to go. Whatever terms we use, we make more inroads inside the European Parliament. We make more inroads also even more than has already happened in industry, for example, in the European Roundtable. That also comes with an important reconfiguration of what markets and investors reward. For example, training, more sustainable and Industry 5.0 oriented business models should get more rewards, perhaps more than our taxonomy of sustainable investment is currently able to give in terms of incentives. And we need to make sure that perhaps the roundtable starts thinking about whether it's time to more openly advocate a shift in our approach to capitalism, a little bit like the American Business Roundtable has done in their papers on the purpose of a corporation, because to the extent that we continue talking about shareholder capitalism, productivity, reducing costs, and maximizing the returns in the next quarter, I don't think we will have the level of vision that is needed to chart our European path for the future of industry. Over to you, Maria Cristina.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for your remarks, always very pertinent and to the point also of the problems that we need to deal with. I would just like to shed some optimism here, because we have a new commission to come, and I think that in the priorities of the President, it is clear that she asks the Commission itself, so DG RTD, DG GROW, the Commission as a whole, we are an institution, to develop a new industrial strategy. And this new industrial strategy should be human-centric, and I think that we now really have to really strengthen the efforts that have been done so far in order to contribute to that from an Industry 0.0 point of view, and then we will see how we should name or not name it, but the important is the content, I think. That's very important. So Guido, in that, thank you for being here. So you've been very active in the European Economic and Social Committee. The Consultative Commission on Industrial Change has recently adopted its own initiative opinion on Industry 5.0, and you've been the co-rapporteur of this opinion. I wanted to ask you if you could summarize what approach the European Economic and Social Committee is recommending on Industry 5.0, and what do you see as next steps? Thank you.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much for the invitation. So we had a first opinion on this topic, but because for us it was a brand new topic, it was pretty new. And what we did in this opinion was to take stock of the discussion, because it was, we have seen 4 documents from the Commission that we have analyzed. Then we tried to make some recommendations on how to proceed in the future, what is the way forward, and we tried also to identify a number of challenges. And that's what we did, and in one of the first drafts there was also the idea to change the name from 5.0 to Industry 4.1. So this was also discussed in our middle, but we kicked it out. We maintained the term 5.0.
4.0.
4.0, yes. But in general, I must say that we broadly support the approach presented by the Commission, because it's about enabling industry to adopt a broader vision, to have a values-driven approach on top of the drive for profitability, and also enabling industry to be better in integrating all risk related to sustainability and resilience. So, and this can create also win-win situations, because it can make industry future-proof by better integrating all these strategic risks. So it can contribute to the long-term survival and long-term competitiveness of industry. So we see not a contradiction at first sight with competitiveness, but it can be discussed, of course. But it can allow industry to develop first-mover advantages by being more resilient, more sustainable, focusing on human centrism. This can create competitive advantages. What for us was also very important was that we have the Green Deal and all the related policies, and we see this as a kind of bottom-up approach. It's bringing the challenge of the twin transition to the shop floor, to the organizational models, to the work organization. So we see it as something complementary to the Green Deal. So, and then regarding the Industry 4.1, there was the conviction that Industry 4.0 needs to be updated. It was launched back in 2011 at the Hanover Fair in Germany. It was a German thing to bring German into the digital age, and it was then spread all over Europe. But it was focused on automation, robotization, and now many things have changed. The climate challenges has become much more urgent. The world is not flat anymore. Resilience has become an issue. So, and on top of that, there are so many breakthrough, disruptive new technologies entering the workplace. The last one is artificial intelligence. So we have to take all this into account. We have to update 4.0. And then for us, especially as Social Economic Committee, it was very important to have this human-centric dimension in it. So because of the datafication of the workplace, all these technologies, the deep penetration of digital technologies is completely overhauling the world of work. So it's good. The last time we did put human-centrism on the agenda was indeed during the era of Toyotism, and then there was the next wave later on. Then we were discussing workplace innovation and workplace development. But now it's again time to do this again, and because as Europe, our human capital is our most important asset, and we have to see how we can make the most of this human capital. So this is very, very important to put humans back in the picture and to make the most of their capabilities of workers and to see how the interaction between humans and machines can be meaningful and rewarding for the worker as well, because the cyber world and the real world are coming closer and closer together. Something about the challenges. A number of them have been identified. So the issue of post-GDP, that's what is the focus of Industry 5.0. So it's creating societal added value, but then it's not completely the same as economic added value. So you need viable business models. That was, and business organizations put much stress on this. Then there is there the added value, because there's so much already been done. So the Green Deal and all the related policies. You have corporate social responsibility. You have reporting, sustainability reporting. Much already is being done, and companies are already pushed in this direction of becoming more resilient and more taking into account sustainable development. So what is there added value in it? That was discussed. Then this was already mentioned. It's quite expensive when you have to adopt your work processes to Industry 5.0 training. It can be expensive without companies seeing the immediate impact on their return on investment. And then the issue was also mentioned, perhaps it's something for the leading companies, and what about SMEs and companies that are at the third-tier suppliers in the supply chain? This was also seen as, isn't it something for the convinced companies, the leading companies? And the challenge also about integration, artificial intelligence. Will this not really lead to de-skilling of work instead of making more use of their capabilities? Because also high-skilled jobs can be, this can be automated. So I leave it by that.
Thank you very much. I really want to thank you for the fact that you took the initiative of having this own initiative opinion on Industry 5.0, because it's really important that all the EU institutions work for that, and the work of the Economic and Social Committee is really important in this respect. Now, speaking about the EU institutions, I go back to the European Parliament. Lina, back to you. For a broader political question, we spoke already about the Draghi report. Andrea made some comments on the focus of the Draghi report, which you will tell us now. Also, I mentioned the priorities of the President, which I think that have the human-centric dimension quite well highlighted. In the few minutes that we have for this roundtable, high-level roundtable, I wanted to ask you, what do you think are the essential steps that the Parliament and the ITRE committee needs to take, you would wish to take in order to tackle those challenges from an Industry 5.0 point of view? I know it will take a long time, but you're very skilled. I'm sure that in 5 minutes you can give us the gist of that. Thank you.
I'll try. Thank you. So I don't know if probably we all remember that we have already a very recent industrial strategy presented. It was in March 2020, very nice date, by the way. It was just a few days before COVID was considered global pandemic. So, and then we restart his job after the COVID, when the COVID started, to pass a bit, but it was already old. It was an already old strategy, and obviously it's clear that we need to move on. And I think that is quite clear. This is quite clear now, the centrality of industry, and a new, obviously, strategy, and obviously Industry 5.0 will be obviously the case. To what extent we will be able to move on or not in this agenda is something different, because the Parliament now is a different world than it used to be sort of a few months ago. There are more nationalistic forces inside the Parliament. This is something we have to admit. We have to see in order really to move on. And that is going to make things difficult. As you know, there are other priorities as well. Even if industry is clear, it should be one priority. Security is a priority, so there is also this idea that a lot will go to defense industry and not industry as a whole. There is probably less commitment towards sustainability and more long-term. So there are some aspects we really need to have in mind, thinking on the political support, but I hope still we will be able to move and to move in the right place. And I would like just to make one comment Andrea made before, criticizing the draft report regarding the lack of geographical dimension, which I think is very important. And it is also very important in order to find political support for these ideas and for this industry, because we don't have a fiscal union. This is something we have to repeat many times. We don't have a fiscal union. The European Union is not a state, it's not an international institution, it's something in between that we are creating or co-creating all the time, which is very nice and very powerful and very hopeful. But we don't have a fiscal union, and each time we are doing policies that are for all, especially having in mind that innovation concentrate in few places, in few hubs within countries and within the union, we really need to look and to make better on geographical spread and geographical balances. Otherwise, we will not have the political support. There's the geographies of this content, and there are more anti-European forces. So now I have to say, because I have promoted in Parliament, and now we have this preparatory action on this Partnership for Regional Innovation, that it is a way really to share and to cooperate, but more need to be done. So I will really ask you also, the Commission, since you have and you have such a nice now DG, this prosperity DG, and you have this legislative, this initiative, this legislative initiative we don't have, which is half of it. And really to look more carefully to that, because unless we do better also on that way, it will not be politically sustainable, what we all agree we have to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lina, for your very sharp analysis. In fact, the link with the territory is very important, and I think that in this respect also, the work that we're doing and the objective of the Industry 3.0 are very important to bring also the EU closer to the citizens and closer to the territory. So reason more to continue on that. So on the objectives we discussed, now I would like to move a bit on the methodology of our work. A lot has been done via our Industry 5.0 community of practice with more than 170 members on board. We can see an increasing interest in the Industry 5.0 framework among both big industries, SMEs, and startups. But I wanted to ask you a question, Jean-Pascal. If, in your view, is there an efficient method? Is it an efficient method? How big companies could help to join forces with SMEs and startups to further accelerate the adoption of Industry 5.0 in their organizational models? And if so, what would you suggest to do differently if you think an alternative way should be done, or how can we do even better what we're doing so far? Very interesting to hear from you, Jean-Pascal.
Yes, thank you. So, very interesting question, and I think this is really the heart because it should show us the way to move forward for modernization of the industry. When you look at company level, large companies such as Schneider Electric, about 50 to 60% of companies of our size, we have done a certain level of digitalization, sustainability practice. I think it's there because we have the scale. So it's good we are doing it. We should do it faster. We should do it. We should reach 100% of large companies. That's for sure to do that. But let's say the momentum, I would say, is here. But then, when you look at smaller companies, let's say, so sometimes we call it SMEs, but really where the threshold is around 2 billion euro. It's about 200, so I would prefer to call it non-large company. When you see non-large companies, the adoption and the practice rate of this type of digital sustainable practice is dropping below the 10%. And actually, Europe is lagging in terms of percentage versus the rest of the world, or at least our main competitors, China and the US. So here, this is really where we have I would say, a problem or an issue. So this, I want to be blunt and to be clear. We will need massive public-private partnership to help that. What we can do as large company, we are starting to do that since a couple of years, is now we have done a good job, let's say, on our manufacturing footprint. We fully understand that our competitivity is linked as well with our customer, but a lot with our supplier. So we are pulling it. We are showing them. We are showing our factories to more than 10,000 people per year to show, okay, this is how we think you should do in your own factory. But it's best practice sharing. So this we can do. It's easy, but we cannot invest on their behalf. Yeah? Sometimes we do it, actually. But we just had last week, actually, our supplier day. We have more than 1,000 top supplier worldwide in Grenoble. And basically, the message we are really clear. You need to have sustainable plan in place, because it's not only about you, it's even our future and our resilience, which is at stake. So either you are with us, we can help you with us. So clear messages from large company, it's number one. It's not enough, we cannot do everything, but it's number one. Large company have the duty to drive the full ecosystem forward. And then what we are doing very pragmatically, I would like to share as well an example. In Europe, we have about 60 industrial sites. Among the 60 industrial sites, we have 3 new sites which we have shifted or modernized in order to do a refurbishing and circular economy. So we have 3 industrial sites which are dedicated to take back some old product, modernize it, and sell it back to the market. So this is new, but and we started more as a pilot within Europe, but it makes a lot of, we are learning a lot, and I think there is a dimension which we have to take as well in this regard, is about the design of the product, because at the end of the day, when the challenge of the circular and 5.0 start even from the design, you know, how you can take into account the full life cycle of a product. So thanks to those pilots, we are learning a lot, but it takes time because our product life cycle is 10 years. So today we are starting to design an R&D project which will be on the market in 5 years, which will be designed with circularity. But it has to start now so that step by step, the full economy is is with products that can be more involved into circular economy. And in this circular economy, it's an ecosystem because we have a lot of players in this. We have some parts are upgraded by some SMEs, etc. So we are creating an whole ecosystem which is mainly done through SMEs in order to tackle this circular approach. So I think it's very interesting, but today, to be honest, it's mainly a pilot phase, I would say, but this is really something, at least at Schneider, we want to push forward and accelerate, that's for sure, yes.
Thank you very much again for your passion and your energy on that. Let me also say that when you speak about designing of the project and circular economy, one also the key initiatives that we are bringing forward in DG Research and Innovation and in the Prosperity Directorate is the work on advanced materials for which we have put forward a strategy which we are in full speed in implementation, and we were very happy to see that the President has fully recognized its merit in asking to the designated Commissioner for Research, Innovation and Startups to come forward with an Advanced Materials Act. So this is also something that is very important, and we can really combine and join the dots there. So following these remarks from Jean-Pascal, Judith, I wanted to ask you, how would you see the role of EU industries in scaling up Industry 5.0 approach in Europe? And what are the key challenges in this process? And how can this large industry, in a way, support and pave the way for the smaller ones?
Good question. I mean, one way in which large industry can play a stimulating and enabling role is as Jean-Pascal has described. That said, I think you probably need to take a step back, because if you, how should I say, if you look back a little, you always, with large industry, with small industry, you usually have, let's say their purpose is to obviously create value, to create employment, but it's also to make their owners and their shareholders happy. It's not about whether that is right or wrong, but the point is that if you do not perform to an extent that your shareholders are happy with you, they will leave you, and then you won't be able to do anything. And I think that is just the hard reality. So if you want to change that, I think what we probably really have to face up to, and there I'm also a bit inspired by Enrico Letta, because he makes that point extremely convincingly, is that Europe needs much, much larger capital markets. Because if you have larger capital markets, you achieve two things. The first one is you just have more money in the system, which means much more firepower for investors, but it also means much more firepower for companies. And then also you have more different kinds of investors and more participation in economic growth by citizens, because they find much easier ways in to actually invest in economic growth and invest companies. And then you can have investors who say, I care about this, this, and this, and I don't only care about the bottom line. And I think it's high time that we manage to pull that off, because we can talk a lot as long as there's no money, and as long as, whereas actually the money that is invested in Europe is largely coming from outside Europe, and we will not get to the point where we can really say these are the values and this is according to what we want to play to. So that's one thing. The other one, I think, is that you need to create markets. No company, not even a small one, is going to survive very long if it produces things in a way, or produces things that nobody wants to buy, or that are too expensive, because there's always a trade-off between quality, idea, price. So you can have a wonderful sustainable product that is produced in a perfect Industry 5.0 way. If nobody wants to buy it, or too many people say, I would like to buy it, but I can't afford it because the alternative is much cheaper and it kind of does the same thing, then it remains an idea. So you really need to talk about creating the markets and creating the money. And I think then we can start talking about how the ecosystem can function better, but those is the beginning and it's the end. And if you don't manage to have those two things in place, the middle simply won't populate. Or it will not populate to the density that you want, because unfortunately we only don't have that many Schneider Electrics in Europe. And I mean, we'd like to have more. Not too many. But you see where I'm getting to. I mean, you need to create better conditions from the beginning and from the endpoint in order to actually trigger those dynamics that you want to achieve, because otherwise it remains an idea and it doesn't become a business.
Thank you very much. Very interesting, the points, very clear, creating the market and creating the money. Also, thanks, Judith, for having highlighted, mentioned the Letta report. We spoke a lot about Draghi report. It's not a competition amongst former Italian prime ministers, but I think it's important also to mention the Letta report, which has big merits, including the fact of putting research very high in the agenda of the European Union and taking some steps to complete, let's say, the single market in this respect. And I think that when Letta speaks about the promotion of the fifth freedom, the freedom of research, there is a lot which is linked to the human-centric. So that's very good. Thank you very much. So Andrea, I get back to you. You always have very sharp and focused points of view. So this brings me to ask a very specific question. If you were to advise on one action that should be launched at the EU level to help to scale up Industry 5.0 in Europe, what would this action be?
It's actually a very simple question. My answer is embrace it. As for what I was saying before, there hasn't been a consistent approach towards embracing a vision for Industry 5.0 over the past 5 years. It's time to shift gear and be a bit more consistent and coherent. Understanding what also Judith was saying was, Jean-Pascal, this is fantastic what I hear from you, right? The fact that you want to embrace a different set of values for European capitalism. But you also understand, Judith, that pumping in more money which is what we see happening in the US, is not going to do the trick by itself, because what we get is a model of capitalism from there is not really conducive towards an Industry 5.0 approach. It requires corrective measures. So having more money available, deeper and richer financial markets is inevitably a precondition, but this money has to be channeled in a way that gives the right incentives to companies and see what are the virtuous investments at the company level and value chain level get really rewarded in a way that gives a competitive edge to those companies that embrace this set of values. So I'm going to give you one example which comes from one of the fields where I'm mostly active, which is artificial intelligence. I was a member of the high-level expert group many years ago in the European Commission, where we defined the elements of trustworthy AI, right? And that's human-centric. There is an orientation towards societal and environmental well-being. All these things, almost all, were then translated one way or another into the AI Act. What we get from the AI market in the US, which are the solutions that dominate our market today, doesn't tick any of those boxes. It's not trustworthy, right? And it is not human-centric, and it's actually much more dominating or hyper-nudging people into doing things that reduce our sense of agency. So DG Research and Innovation, if I had the magic wand, and I also wrote it in a paper, I actually would launch a big orchestrated initiative on AI that looks into achieving trustworthy AI, achieving the complementary skills that are not only digital skills, but also the critical thinking skills, the empathy skills, and so on, that people need to be complementary to machines in the future, and make this a key element, a key pillar of the future European strategy. And we can call it competitiveness, but it has to be clear that competitiveness has to have a huge C, capital C, a huge capital P, which is prosperity. Right? And there are many other letters here I could play with, but I don't have the time. Because when we talk about competitiveness, otherwise we might get confused. So final provocation that I have, because Lina, I think, mentioned that before. We are now under this big Damocles sword of the competitiveness plan, which sounds Soviet a little bit, Sovietic big long-term planning, where everything that we have from Horizon Europe to EIC, EIT, Health for All, and everything will be put into the same cauldron and be made part of a competitiveness plan. And everything that is multi-level, cohesion, structural funds, the Next Generation EU, is also put into single national plans, okay? Which is, again, for me, make or break. If we really will do this, and I don't know what's going to happen in the Parliament once this lands on the Parliament, the conditionalities that we will impose that are supposed to be coherent are of the essence. We're going to have to fight it as once. If there's one thing we have to take to the streets, to take it to the streets in the future, it will be for these conditionalities, because we're talking about a 1.2 trillion euro thing. If we get it wrong, we really get it wrong massively. So if the conditionalities of this mega bazooka plan, just to echo the Draghi report, or Draghi himself, will incorporate an Industry 5.0 approach, so giving directionality to money that is spent, the public money that is spent, could be public and private at the same time, but with the directionality given by the public sector, we need to make sure that the incentives and the direction that are given by the use of this public money go in the direction of a sustainable, resilient, and human-centric approach to industrial transformation. If we don't do this, I think we're doomed, and the sense of urgency and anxiety that Draghi transmitted to us by saying, if we don't change, failure is failure to transform, but if we don't do this type of transformation, I think the anxiety will translate into an actual sense of doom and gloom that will last for many, many years for all us Europeans. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Andrea. I was waiting for a provocation from you, so thank you for making it.
You got
so,
that?
yes, I got it. I was sure about that. But certainly, I mean, we still need to see how we would move forwards to this competitiveness plan. I think that one important point is that if we want to change what exists now, is to make it work better for our citizens. So certainly it should have a human-centric approach, and obviously you can count on us in the Prosperity Directorate to push for it. Right. Also, I wanted to say that several times the question of the important question of artificial intelligence was raised here. I didn't pick up because we don't have time, but to be also aware for all of you that in the guidelines of the President there is also a mention to develop a strategy for artificial intelligence in science, and also a European Council for Artificial Intelligence, and we are working on that. We are working on that with the human centricity at the core of these endeavors. But now the last question of this second round to Guido. So I wanted to ask you what, in your view, should be the key building blocks of the Industry 5.0 business case that we could use to bring forward all what we have said so far?
Yes, I agree fully with Andrea. We have to embrace it, but the problem is before we can embrace it, we have to do something. And these are the building blocks. And when we discuss it inside CCMI, a number of them were identified. And then the first one was because it's still an academic vision, it has to be turned into reality. We have to move to practice. And one of the issues is the conceptual framework. So, for example, how do you define human centrism in a completely digitalized world? Workers, the datafication of work. So this is completely overhauling the world of work, and it has a huge implication on the future of work. So human centrism, redefine it. Then having a common understanding, it was already mentioned, about the possible profits, the return on investment, perhaps in the long term. So moving away from capitalism, but still you have this bottom line, this still exists. So yeah, the return on investment when you invest in this for companies. Then yeah, you need good practices to develop business models. Do they already exist? Are there experiences? Can we exchange them? This could be inspiring for companies. And then what to us was also important that we organize all these kind of stakeholder platforms, networks. There are so many stakeholders involved in this at all levels, at the European level, European institutions, public-private partnerships, strategic alliances, the industrial ecosystems. At national level, you have the social partners, the business organizations. At the regional level, you have the regional development organizations, incubators, knowledge and innovation centers. So there is so many actors in this field that can contribute to it. So bring them together and try to develop training programs, exchange of good practices, scale up good practices. So the practical work on the ground should be done. Then we think it's also important to integrate these ideas, the vision, into the already existing policies. The European Pillar of Social Rights, innovation policy, the digital policy, the social dialogue, And so the existing should be permeate into the existing policies of the union. And then when you come down to the company level, I think it's important that companies work on something, or that we develop a concept like corporate governance 5.0. And this, I think, in my opinion, has to do with looking at the interaction between technology deployment, business organization, work organization, and the use of human capital. So trying to strengthen this triangle, I think it's very important. Because yeah, you have all these disruptive technologies are coming to the workplace, extended reality, digital twins, edge computing. So it's disrupting the work organization. So these technologies, when you design these technologies, you should take into account the impact, you should take into account the human centricity, respect the workers in the using these technologies, involving them in the development of in the design of these technologies, and make them human-centric. That's the technology side. Organizational, already now, all these digital technologies have completely changed the business organization. It has led to vertical and horizontal integration of processes. It has led to decentralized decision-making, real-time decision-making. So it's completely overhauling business organizations. And also here, again, it's important to see where is the human dimension in this new kind of business organization. In this respect, it's important to involve also the workers in this by means of workplace innovation, self-steering teams, and this kind of tools that exist already, but that can be used to adopt business organizations in a human-centric way. And then regarding human capital, yeah, digital is everywhere. Just digital literacy is important, and you have to see the impact of digitalization of work on workers, on their skills, on the job roles. And in this respect, two things are, in my opinion, important: creating a learning organization, continuous learning inside the company, and using the tools for that, involving workers, co-decision, and so on. So this is important to help workers to adapt to integrate all these new digital technologies and to learn with this datification of the working life. And I think also social dialogue is important to deal with the consequences of increased digitalization of jobs, deal with the impact on workers, on skills, on jobs that will disappear, retraining of workers, information and consultation of workers. So in a number of countries we have collective agreements on that, implementation of new technologies, implementation of new forms of work organization. So involved representative organization of workers in assessing and dealing with the impact on human capital. So this would be my recommendations.
Thank you very much for your recommendations, and also thanks for your role to the Economic and Social Committee to reach out to the stakeholders as much as possible, which is also something that we are doing with this Industry 5.0 community of practice. So I think that we still have a bit of time to obviously to take some questions from the Slido, and my colleagues are kindly giving me the main important questions that have been put on the table. So I would start from the most asked question, which relates to human-centric approach. It was highlighted that Industry 5.0 puts a strong emphasis on human-centric. How can we ensure that this focus doesn't lead to job displacement and exacerbate skill gaps, especially in regions with less access to education and upskilling? I think it's something that has been touched upon during the debate already, but maybe we could make some specific remarks on that very briefly. Shall I start from you, Lina, again, and I will ask you to be brief with some key elements. Thanks.
Very brief. Sometimes I don't think. Obviously, the problem it is in education, upskilling. I think even in less developed regions, there are still good education, even high education, good university system in many places. The problem is that these people are not finding opportunities in those places. So I think the problem is most of a brain drain. I go back now to letter report on this right to stay, not only right to move, also right to stay, which I think, and I go back to what I was saying before, this is important because otherwise, since we don't have a fiscal union or anything similar, these people that we are investing in some less developed regions and poorer regions, and they are putting a lot of money on educating their people, on investing on their young people, they are not staying there. They are moving to these innovation hubs somewhere within the country, but also in some places in Europe, and they will be paying their taxes and supporting the welfare state and the pensions of those places and not of the places they have invested on them. So this is a problem really, we really need to give a good solution, because otherwise we will be creating more inequalities, and it's not that what we want in order really to be more competitive, to be more sustainable, and to be politically also sustainable. So we have really, it is not a question of less education in those places, the question that we are educating in those places, but people are going somewhere else and, you know, sustaining other systems and not the system that had invested on them.
Yeah, also very important to be closer to the citizens. By the way, thanks for highlighting the right to stay in the letter report. I once was discussing with Enrico Letta, and somebody asked him, what do you think is the most important point of your report? And he really said, for me, it's really important this right to stay, because this is something that, I mean, I don't have time to talk now, but came in a discussion that he had with somebody during his interviews. And he said that this is at the essence of what we should do in the EU. We should certainly promote the freedoms to move, but also the conditions to stay, and that is important. Jean-Pascal, from your experience, what can you add?
Yeah, I can share a bit of experience. I don't think it's holistic or something, but basically, I think sometimes when we think about digital technology, we think, oh, we need a new set of skilled worker, etc. But not at all. I mean, the actual guys that we had on the shop floor, you know, with very few training, you can bring them to fully leverage digital data, and actually it helps them on their job. I mean, what we provide as a tool as digital is somehow much more easier than just the machines they operate. Huh? So it's not something super as complicated as we might think. Huh? So I think it will provide even more job opportunities. People are looking for this. So for us, it's not at all. We don't see that as an issue. Of course, we have practice, we have labs where people can train, discover more, etc. But today it's known in the industry. Today, the retraining of the workforce and how to manage a digital transformation, it's something which is well known. There is not any more surprise. We just have to do it actually, and there is no. And people are ready for this, fully ready. There is no problem.
Yeah, maybe we can introduce the second question that can be also answered together by the other panelists, which more specifically is asking what would be, in your views, the key initiatives to further bring Industry 5.0 at regional level, which is very much linked to this previous one. So Judith, maybe I pass you on with the two questions together.
I do my best. I'm not sure I'm the right person in the sense that for the large companies, at least, there is a capacity to do this, and I think many of them are doing a lot of what you summarize as 5.0, only they don't call it like that, because for them, in a way, it's common sense. So I think, but they also can afford this common sense because they have the financial and geographical and technological basis and the infrastructure and the connections and the knowledge and the people. If you, I think, want to bring Industry 5.0 wider, then I think you have to start seeing what do those need who, or what kind of support or enablers do those need who could use it and who could profit from it and whose workforce could profit from it, but who, for whichever reason, don't have the bandwidth to actually implement it on their own. And I would look at those companies. I think you put the threshold as about below 2 billion revenue. It's a fairly large company, yeah? Already. But I would say look for those where you see this is actually not happening, but they might be gaining from it. and where at the same time there is enough scale to say you actually create a fairly sizable impact if you manage to find a way that works for them. And then you will probably also see that many of them are quite dispersed all over Europe, so they're not only in the big centers, and that may address some of your cohesion issues, and then it might trickle down. But I would say look at what's there and look at how you can help what's there. That's better, I think, than coming up with something very theoretical that when you're then basically chasing reality.
Jean-Pascal.
Yeah, to complement quickly, 70% of mid-sized companies do have multi-countries industrial site. So to your point about geographies, it's really a European approach that we need to have when we tackle the industrial topics such as Industry 5.0. And each one of those factories, they do have suppliers from other countries or customers in other countries. So to think about industry and a national approach in Europe, it does not make sense. Industry is a European by definition. This is the right level. Yeah.
Lina, please.
Yeah, but very, very small. We have made a huge effort in a list in the last term to include, because I'm being a rapporteur or a shadow rapporteur of many of them, to include more geographical balance on EIC, on EIT. I mean, just trying also that all the institutions and all the mechanisms we have really can reach, but it is difficult unless we improve our synergies between cohesion funds and Horizon Europe or the framework program, whatever it will come. Because sometimes the problem, those regions that are less developed or the small and medium companies or universities or research centers in those areas is that they lack sometimes the administrative capacity. I mean, the capacities, they're very physical sometimes even capacities to can be able to compete in Europe or even to collaborate and to cooperate with other own interests. So we really need to also to put or to improve the capacity of those regions and all the institutions in those regions, on those areas, really to be able to build up these capacities. And also sometimes it's just a question of administrative support. This is very clear on research, but not only.
Yeah, thank you. I think that improving synergy and complementarities between our actions and programs is one of the key elements that will guide the future long-term budget. Andrea and Guido, Andrea, to you, any points you would like to add?
I'll try to tackle briefly the overarching question. I mean, will there be job displacement? It's an easy answer. We don't know. Especially, there's the first half of my answer. I'm going to complement it. But we don't know. Meaning, after the release of generative AI systems, in particular when ChatGPT entered the market towards the end of 2022, I remember the European Commission and the US administration, in the context of the Trade and Technology Council, released a report, a joint report, Council of Economic Advisors and European Commission, where they said, well, remember all these pages written by whatever, David Autor at the MIT, or Eric Bryn-Jolson, or even Daron Acemoglu's recent Nobel Prize. Okay, turn the page, because with generative AI systems, we actually think that many more intellectual tasks and cognitively loaded tasks will be potentially replaceable. So, for example, the ILO, the International Labour Organization, published a report together with the Global Partnership on AI, in which basically, well, if I had seen a PhD thesis like this, I would have just said, okay, you come back in 6 months or a year because you haven't done the job, because the report basically says, we know of the job market that we are sure about 10-15% of the employment is an employment where there will be augmentation by AI. There's like 7-8% where we are pretty sure there will be a replacement. All the rest is the big unknown. And say, what kind of finding is this? Basically, we don't know. And so this is just to qualify why I'm telling you we don't know. Now, the second half of my answer is the good thing is that it depends on us, right? It depends on us how we approach the introduction of technologies in the marketplace, and whether we do it in a human-centric way, in a way that is human-augmenting as opposed to human-replacing. There will be the replacement and displacement of several tasks. People that tell you that tasks don't convert into jobs lie, and so if many tasks are being replaced, this also means there will be less jobs. But there will be other types of jobs that might emerge. And the good thing that we're seeing there is that the skills that will be needed in order to really complement machines are not the skills that we've been talking about over the past 10 years. We had a big wave of talking about STEM, coding, and that's it. That everybody had to become a coder. Today, you ask GPT or whatever, a code whisperer or a co-pilot to write the code for you, and then you ask yourself, Winnie, was it a good idea to study coding so much, you know, to devote, because today, actually, you do text to code by really using your normal language, and of course you need to control a little bit the code that comes out of it, but basically that is not a skill that will define you as a worker, and it's not a skill that makes for a good job, and I'm going to use this in the final part of my answer. The expression good jobs is an expression that was used in that part of the world where capitalism has led to a lot of polarization and inequality. The Biden administration has incorporated good jobs coming from the work of economists like Danny Roderick or others into big pieces of legislation, big interventions in industrial policy, such as the CHIPS Act or the Inflation Reduction Act, or even something that goes into the regional dimension, which is the Regional Innovation Engines program, which looks not at California or Massachusetts, it looks at Montana or North Dakota. So it tries to give a frontier and an opportunity to those areas that typically are cut out of the big technological progress. So we have now someone that actually, unbelievably, is teaching us a lesson that we should have taught them, right? That could introduce jobs-related conditionalities in industrial policy. A good job being a job that empowers workers, that trains workers, and so not the data cleaner, right? It's a job that empowers a worker as an integral part of an organization. So final bit, sorry, Maria Cristina, is the regional dimension because of this. Not every region can become California or Darmstadt or the area of Paris or, unfortunately, London, which is our top AI hub in Europe, right? Innovation in specific technologies, in particular general purpose technologies and digital technologies, is concentrated. So by simply saying everybody should get a share of it, we're not going to get anywhere. But different regions can have different frontiers, so you need to study. We do this with also in the ESIR group with an approach of economic complexity and economic geography. You study the technological specialization in individual regions. You build a frontier for them. You study the relatedness of the specialization of different sub-regions of Europe, and you build incentives for regions to get where they can get and partake in the benefits that the industrial transformation can generate. This is, in my opinion, a way to organize a just transition. In the past 5 years, just transition was most often an afterthought. Let's say, let the Green Deal happen, let's compensate the ones that are more intensive on fossil fuels. This cannot happen in this way. A just transition is just from day one. It's just like in the product design, as you were saying before. It's also in the policy design that you incorporate the right conditionalities and the fairness and the equitable nature of the outcomes. And I think this is an effort that we need to make all together, because otherwise, the endogenous part of this, which is we can decide the policies and we can somehow steer the outcomes in terms of job creation, the creation of good jobs in particular, that will vanish because we will not retain any control and any directionality on where industry might end up leading us.
Thank you, Andrea. I think a lot has to be done in this respect, building on what has already been done, and also one of the key flagships of the next commission, the Clean Industrial Deal, could hopefully pave the way for that. Guido, a final remark on this point? We can share it.
No. Yeah, I fully agree with what Andrea said about the regional dimension. I think Industry 5.0 can be acted as a lever for regional development, because we have many tools existing already at the regional level, like smart specialization technologies, industrial clusters. You have all kinds of intermediaries that incubators, knowledge and innovation communities. So if you use these instruments to integrate the dimension of Industry 5.0, I think, and I fully agree with you, that it can be an actor to promote regional development. And I very much like the idea from Let the Right to Stay, and we have to work on that. And Industry 5.0 could be helpful for that. I didn't agree with you about displacement of jobs, because, I don't know, when I compare automation of jobs will continue in industry. So the number of jobs in industry will, it has started to decrease already for decades, and it will continue further to decrease. The number of blue-collar jobs in industry will decrease, and at the end of the day, manufacturer workers will become knowledge workers, but there will be less. So, and this is leading to polarization of our labor market, because industry used to be an employer for good quality jobs for blue-collar workers. It created a middle class. Industry created a middle class of blue-collar workers. This has disappeared, and this is creating tensions in our societies, tension on the labor markets. So, yeah, industry as an employer of good jobs for blue-collar workers, this role will disappear. And then I made myself the reflection, yes, when we are discussing Industry 5.0 compared to Industry 4.0, is Industry 5.0 is not equal to Industry 4.0 minus the manual workers. And the remaining workers will be the knowledge workers, which, by definition, have already an interesting job. So, but that's some food for thought.
Well, thank you very much for your remarks. I think that with that we reached the end of this high-level panel, which has been very interesting. I think we could continue forever, but we have a very full program today. So let me thank each of you, and I would like to ask to applaud our 5 speakers.
And you, and our moderator.
Thank you very much. I think that I can just conclude by saying that the work that we have done so far is very relevant, that we need to continue this work, and we need really to be able to take up the challenge and the opportunity that we have now with this new commission, with the new priorities of the president, where prosperity is at the heart of it. So we should continue to work together in that direction. So thank you very much.
Thank you for moderating.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
If you are the author of these documents, then you have to one of the documents, no? Yeah. Your name is on it.
Yeah. All the SEO documents. Let's go, Guido.
I would like now to move to the next part of this morning, which is obviously very much linked to the discussions that we had so far, and which specifically deals with the human-centric approach that we are promoting. And I would like to invite here to the podium Sean O'Regan. Sean is senior expert for human centricity, Industry 5.0, and I have the honor to work with him. Sean has been working on those questions for a long time, and as he will tell, so I will leave him the floor to say, we have just published an ERA human-centric technology roadmap, which touches upon many of the questions we discussed today. So Sean, I give you the floor to present the main outcomes of our work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina, and good morning, everyone. I realize that I'm the speaker who's standing between you and your well-deserved lunch. So I will try to take a human-centric approach and be succinct and to the point. So, indeed, as Christina has said, our work in developing the human-centric technologies roadmap really has its genesis in Industry 5.0. So it is indeed appropriate that we present the roadmap here this morning. And really, what motivated us to bring forward this roadmap was the understanding from the rapid take-up of Industry 5.0 that human centricity in particular was the very novel pillar of it, and that this could have a wider application across research and innovation. Because the emerging digital technologies at the moment really offer a unique opportunity to optimize interactions between workers and machines in a way that really allows the integration of these technologies into the workplace in a way that also maximizes the creativity and the skills and the potential of workers. But this needs to be done now because these technologies are taking hold, and if we don't bring the human-centric dimension in from the start, we will miss this opportunity. A second aspect that's very clear is that if we want to attract young new workers into industry, then they expect to be offered a career that would be challenging for them. Already Generation Z, Gen Z, is making very clear that it wants to work for an employer who understands their desire to have a challenging career, capitalizing on their skills in digital technologies, and that allows them ongoing development as these technologies change rapidly. And now with Generation Alpha coming into the job market, these are young people who are already using these technologies in their daily lives, so they will certainly expect it even more that human-centric application of digital technologies will be applied in industry. These are rare, highly skilled workers. If we don't get it right in industry, they will go elsewhere. They're very much in demand. And I think a wider aspect is that human centricity can play a role in improving working conditions, enhancing the engagement of workers with their employers. And at a policy level, if human centricity can be aggregated up to ensure that technological development, technological integration can also contribute to wider societal benefits and enhance the way in which our economy and society work. So this roadmap was developed in very broad cooperation with industry stakeholders and other stakeholders in research and innovation, and there were also consultations with representatives of European member states and other countries associated to the framework programme. It was also supported by an independent external study which identified the ways in which the human centricity can really be integrated in the way in which digital technologies are being applied in the workplace. So really 3 key messages can be distilled from the work on the roadmap. The first one is that when technologies are being developed and being adopted, that there should be much more focus on not technology for the sake of technology or technology purely for efficiency, but really how can these technologies be applied in a way that maximizes the impact at company level, but also wider in the economy. And here, the human centricity is the key to achieving this impact by engaging the workers in the process of adopting these technologies. Also a clear message was that industry leaders, in a way, need to be more proactive in the way in which they look at how they're adopting these digital technologies, so they take account of the benefits for them of a human-centric approach, so that they focus on the need for ongoing skills development in the context of the strategy of the company going forward, that they develop in their companies a culture around people-driven mindsets, and that they find ways of expanding the role of employees in decision-making in the company. Also, a clear message for policymakers is that technology needs to be seen not purely in terms of its direct deliverables, but the important role it can play in achieving wider societal and economic goals. And here, a very clear message that came through was that stakeholders would really like to see a broadly based public policy initiative focused on promotion, adoption and support for human-centric application of digital technologies. So really there are 3 policy action lines that emerge from the work of the roadmap. First one is the need to enhance the development of technologies in a way that brings human centricity into the workplace. And Jean-Pascal Riss, I think, gave us a very clear case study example of the journey that Schneider Electric is on in this regard. But really what it's about is using human centricity to use collaborative smart robots in the workplace so that you can empower workers. Workers feel empowered, they feel that they can do the value-added part of the job, and the robots in a collaborative way can support them while also taking the more dangerous and risky and mundane aspects of the job out of the way. Also, physical and cognitive augmentation tools can be used to actually improve the capacities of workers so that they have more knowledge and more skills to do their work. Using artificial intelligence, big data and digital twins to really give workers more information so that they can become smart workers. And again, this empowers them further, gives them more control over their work and enhances their job satisfaction. And then also using smart devices and interfaces such as wearables to improve the safety for workers in the workplace, but also to give them feedback on their job performance and ways in which they can improve it so they have more ownership of their job. But another message that comes through very clearly at a policy level is that there's a need to reorientate policy frameworks and funding programs really to drive towards human centricity. And an interesting fact that comes out of the work that was done on the roadmap is that the majority of human-centric technologies that are being supplied in the European market come from outside Europe, from USA, from China, and so on. And this needs to change. The situation with startups is a little bit better because venture capitalists understand that human-centric technologies are the future and they are supporting startups. But if these startups are to reach the critical scale that they will need to be at to be real significant players in terms of delivering human-centric technologies, then there's also need for public support intervention. The second policy action line is aimed at fostering take-up of technologies that can enable human centricity. And here very much the clear message is there's a need for much more use of platforms, of shared infrastructures, and generally greater interconnection within industry ecosystems and right across industry ecosystems. So there's a need to develop training programs that can mitigate shortages and mismatches in skills. But here, this must be done in the context of the ongoing development of the worker. So in the roadmap, a number of examples have been identified where, for example, training is developed centrally, but in a hub-and-spoke approach, it is then delivered by the trainers to the trainees close to their workplace. So you bring the training to the workers. Important also is to improve the facilitation of the exchange of knowledge between the technology enablers and the actors in industry who are actually applying the technology. So the enablers understand the needs of the actors to ensure that the technology is adopted in a human-centric way. And equally, there's a need for to expand the availability of open access testing facilities and for shared infrastructures across industry so that we really open up the system so that it becomes a learning system that can really foster the take-up of human-centric based technologies. And then the third policy action line is to ensure at organizational level that there is proper human-centric integration of these technologies. And this applies very much to looking at ways in which human business certification and standards can really be focused on human centricity. How can human centricity be built into the way in which these certification and standards are developed? Also important to recognize that a lot of the time businesses won't have the in-house capacity to apply the technologies in a human-centric way. So there's need for guidance to organization on how the technology can be designed, developed, and integrated in their particular business environment. And a third aspect of that then is really the benefiting from the experience and the knowledge of the worker on the shop floor, allowing the workers and finding the appropriate way to do this, to bring them into the decision-making processes so that really companies can be sure that technology is being adopted in a human-centric way. So out of all the work, the key messages, the action lines, the roadmap develops quite a broad range of conclusions across 5 different areas. In relation to education and skills, the focus is very much on having a forward-looking approach to skills development, seeing skills as a part of the lifelong development of the company as well as the worker. In relation to learning capacity within organizations, it's very much about showing companies how they can become more learning organizations, using role models and finding ways in which models can be transferred from one company environment to another. In relation to technology development, the focus is very much on looking at how this can be done in a multidisciplinary way and how, through that, technologies can be adopted in a way that is really supporting human centricity, and linked to that, ensuring that investments to support the adoption of these technologies take into account the need for the approach to be human-centric. In relation to knowledge sharing and open invention, the message is very much that there needs to be more sharing, there needs to be openness that across companies, across sectors, across industry ecosystems to really learn from best practice and to find the best way to adopt it, supporting companies to do that. And very importantly also, there's a need to, in the way in which standards and certifications are developed, to take account of human centricity as an integral part of that, and giving companies tools such as learning manuals or benchmarking processes to measure to see how they're doing against best practice. So very much an approach to standardization that integrates human centricity. So we have a roadmap which is very detailed. And obviously now we move to the stage of implementing the roadmap. And this is where I come back to Industry 5.0 and indeed to the community of practice, because our Commissioner has very much endorsed the excellent work, the excellent outcome of the pilot phase of the community of practice. And she's making clear that she sees the community of practice on Industry 5.0 as the ideal forum to advance the direction set out in the roadmap until 2030. So with that, I'll stop. I hope I've given you some food for thought for the discussions this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean. I would like to really thank you for your very clear and engaging presentation, but also and above all, I would like to thank you for all the work you have done on that, because you have been devoting a lot of time to work on human centricity. It has been a project that you have carried out throughout the last years with lots of competence and personal engagement. And if we are there today, we also owe it to your efforts. So thank you very much. And with that, I think that we can conclude that we had a very interesting morning, a very interesting presentation from the Director General of DG Research and Innovation, which showed also his personal commitment to Industry 5.0, very lively debate, and I thank again the panelists that were so good and engaging in animating the debate. Very interesting presentation of this ERA report that we have produced that can be further discussed this afternoon. And now I think it is time for a very well-deserved lunch. And so let me give you some practical information. We will have lunch now. There is going to be a networking lunch, obviously for those present here, not for the ones joining remotely. And in the afternoon, we will start with parallel collaborative workshops for the community of practice members, focusing on defining key priorities for 2021. Additionally, during the afternoon, we will feature an expert presentation on the key outcomes from the initial testing of the prototype Industry 5.0 learning and assessment tool, which was co-developed by the community during the pilot phase. My colleagues will be here during the afternoon. I, unfortunately, will not be able to stay during the afternoon, but Livio, head of unit in charge of Industry 5.0, amongst others, will moderate the discussion. And before we conclude the morning, let me once again thank all of you, and also thank my own team, Livio, Lars, Diana, Daniela, Susanna, and all of you, Laura, for the great work that you have done and you will do that led us here. and will bring us to move forward, fully tackling the opportunity that we have with the new Commission. So, bon appétit, and we will restart again. We will restart again at 1:20 with these collaborative workshops. Thank you so much. Enjoy the lunch.